change have forgotten that one really crucial piece of it, which is to say that the days and hours and years of our lives that were spent in prostitution were not only spent being brutalized and violated, but were hours and days and years that were stolen from us when we could have been living normal lives with all the ups and downs and the struggles that a normal life entails. But there are also beautiful, wonderful moments of connection, and we lost all those. And that, to me, is a deep part of the damage of prostitution, and we don't look at it often enough. And I think if we did, people who've never lived prostitution, people in the general public, might have a sense of connection to what it is that we have lost, that we haven't been able to really show them. Because what I found as I've traveled the world talking about prostitution is that people, quite understandably, just cannot connect to what it is that we've lived. They don't get it. And why would they get it? They wouldn't get it any more than I would had I never lived prostitution. It's just so far outside the realm of people's conscious understanding if they've never lived it. But I'd like to encourage all of my sex trade surviving sisters here today to look a little bit more deeply into that, into what that means for them, into what are the most personally painful things that they lost simply because they missed out on them. And I know for some of the women that I work alongside, one of the deepest parts of that pain would have been losing access to their children. I know women who've had their children taken into care, and I know women who've died while their children were in care. I know women who've never had that chance. So while, you know, as a mother myself, I have struggled on and off down the years with just the basic stresses and hassles of being a parent. I sometimes, well, and most particularly a single parent, but I remind myself from time to time that a lot of my sex trade surviving sisters never had the privilege of being irritated by those hassles. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is something which for me really gets on my nerves. It's something that bothers me very deeply, and it's something that I've been watching for years now in the anti-trafficking movement. And I have been so busy dealing with the pimps and the johns, excuse me, that I haven't bothered turning my eye or my voice onto this issue until very recently. But I think it really is time that we need to start speaking about this in this movement, because we have, God alone knows how many anti-trafficking organizations on this earth. There are tons of them. And the majority of them do not speak out against the male demand for paid sex. Now that is bald ridiculous. It's absolutely mind-blowing that these groups are advocating to protect sex-trafficked people without ever turning their eye on the reason why they're sex trafficked in the first place. It is like having, let's imagine that the abolitionist movement of 150 or so years ago, who were trying to free people caught up, kidnapped and enslaved in chattel slavery, had not had any kind of an issue with the plantation owners. That's the type of correlation we're talking about here. There's a reason why women and children are prostituted and sex trafficked, and that reason is the male demand for paid sex. So if you're going to run an anti-trafficking organization and have nothing to say about the people whose behavior causes your group to need to exist in the first place, what is that really when we look at it? I call it counterproductive cowardice, because that's what it seems like to me. You cannot, with any kind of sense of reasonable coherence, say, I have a problem with women and children being abused in the sex trade, but I have no problem with the male demand for the sex trade to exist. And that's something that I would like people to start calling out these anti-trafficking organizations on. Because as long as that situation continues, we're not going to make any serious headway, I don't believe. Or at least we're going to be very hampered in the headway that we make in this movement.